Welcome back. All right, so last night we went to Vancouver. I watched a concert. It was a different experience for me for a simple reason. At the time that 3 Days Grace announced this tour and this concert date, I looked at the calendar and I went, well, it's a Saturday in June. There's no way the Stanley Cup Final's not going to be played on a Saturday in June. That would be stupid. So I went to a concert last night because there was no Stanley Cup Final game on a Saturday in June. And I watched Wage War, 3 Days Grace, and Volbeat. And that's the first point that seemed odd to me. And according to how many empty seats we saw at the end of this concert, I think 3 Days Grace was the draw here. So because my wife got the tickets months ago, and I decided a couple days ago, well, I can go. There were tickets available. I got a floor seat. Now, I was on the back. I was in front of the mixer on the very corner of the 13th row, which I thought, that's nice. You know, there's some space between that row and the row in front of it. I'll have some room to walk around. Ha ha. No. So the first thing I want to talk about is people kept standing in front of me. And I don't know what, and I can't prove that they don't like the channel or that they know who I was. They're like, let's block that jerk. Watch this video. He doesn't like our team. But all kidding aside, it was irritating. And one thing that I'm finding increasingly irritating at concerts now are these main characters. These people that will have their phones out. There are some ladies today that might be looking at some selfies they took directly in front of me where they're all, and I'm in the background just glaring at the camera. They may have that experience today. Oh, who's this guy in the background? And then their boyfriend looks like the hockey guy. But anyways, yep, so that was fun. And of course, everybody knows I'm short. So when they're holding up their phone like this, they're directly in my line of sight. I can't see anything. So I'm like, all right, cool, great, awesome. And that started happening during 3 Days Grace. The part of the concert I was really, really invested in and I was really excited for was when people, not during Wage War, and Wage War was good. I want to say, if you have not seen Wage War in concert, you should. I've seen them a couple of times. I think we've seen them 3 times now, and I remember seeing them the first time, and they were okay. There was no production. It was just, they came out, hi, we're Wage War, it's our first, we're the first band, how's it going? And nobody paid much attention. But they've got better. I think their sound was fantastic. I think their visual presentation on stage was great. So Wage War's come a long way. They're excellent. And then 3 Days Grace came out. Now what's interesting is, so my wife is not on the floor. She's up in seats. So I kept leaving the floor to go over and talk to her during intermissions and whatnot. Obviously there's three bands, so there's 2 intermissions, right? And they're long intermissions, so I could just keep going over because you have to change out all the stage stuff. But in between Wage War and 3 Days Grace, I said to her, okay, so I'm not a big Volbeat fan, so I could, maybe go over and check out merch. Maybe I can go get myself something to eat, and it'll, because 3 Days Grace will be the headliner. They weren't the headliner. Volbeat was the headliner. 3 Days Grace went on before Volbeat. The way this was promoted, it looked like it was going to be a double headliner, and it just made sense to me that 3 Days Grace would go on last. They're Canadian. They're iconic. Everybody loves 3 Days Grace. So, right? And I know there's people who don't necessarily, but I'm just saying in general. I even, the short that I uploaded to the channel here of I Hate Everything About You, I sent it to my ex. Because I was like, you know what? She'd really enjoy this. This was one of her favorite songs. She may have even sang it around her apartment about me. I don't know. Maybe we sang it about each other. Maybe that's why we liked it so much. Toxic as toxic does. I'm not saying she was toxic. I had the toxic too. Go watch the other video. But when Animal I've Become started, and it was just like the first note, I went, what? And I jumped up from my seat because I was just sitting down. I was like, it's going to be Volbeat, so I'm fine. And apparently, Yvonne had messaged me before. That's the drum set of 3 Days Grace. They're coming out. So, yeah, whoops. I'd be wearing a 3 Days Grace t-shirt. I just want to say I did get one at the concert last night, but when Yvonne was coming out of the concert, and we'll get to that part too, we had very different experiences. So if you're wondering why I'm doing this by myself, we had a very different experience. I'm talking to her about doing a video tomorrow about the experience she had, and maybe inviting 1 or 2 of the kids to discuss it with her on the set here and in front of the camera. We'll see how that goes. Our family gets really chatty and everybody talks over everybody else. But anyways, that being said, so 3 Days Grace came out. They played, and I was very excited, even though people kept stepping in front of me. And I just found it weird. I was looking around. One thing that I always do when I'm at a concert is I try to measure out, okay, who's wearing the most shirts of which band, right? So when we went to Evanescence, honestly, there were a lot of Warning shirts. There were a lot of Hailstorm, and then most Evanescence, I think, in terms of shirts. But it was pretty even down the like. People wanted to see all three bands. There were definitely more 3 Days Grace shirts, and of course, I got a 3 Days Grace hat. I went back and forth on the hat, and I thought, yeah, I wear hats all the time. I should have a 3 Days Grace hat. I don't have band hats enough. I have Rammstein, I have the Warning, now I have 3 Days Grace. I need more band hats. But the crowd was there for 3 Days Grace. There was a whole row in front of me. There were 3 or 4 people directly in front of me and the row ahead that were gone after 3 Days Grace. The whole row, almost the entire row, 2 rows back of where Yvonne was sitting, emptied out after 3 Days Grace. I ended up being able to sit behind my wife during Volbeat because half of that row had already left. And then while I was sitting talking to her, other people in the row were getting up and leaving as well. And I'm looking around. The floors got empty seats. The mosh pit was quiet by mosh pit standards. And it was relatively spacious in terms of if you wanted to go out there and dance around, you absolutely could. You had lots of room. I think it's bizarre, the way that they decided to put this on. I don't know who makes that call. While I was, and this is where the experience was different, I did hear a concert goer after the concert saying that her theory was that Volbeat's too heavy and that 3 Days Grace fans don't like Volbeat because they're too heavy. No. Volbeat is very Metallica-esque in their guitar riffs. There were a few songs where I was like, this is very Metallica. And it's not that I'm not saying that they steal from Metallica. You know, you can hear a band and go, that sounds similar-ish. I'm not saying a Greta Van Fleet ripoff kind of thing, because without Zeppelin, you don't have Greta Van Fleet. Without Metallica, you may still have Volbeat. They might just sound a little different. But it was just a weird choice, in my opinion. It was bizarre. But Wage War was great. Volbeat was good. I'm not saying they were not good. They were good. I'm not a huge... I did not stay till the end of that set. It was a 4-hour concert, and it wears on you after a while. That may have been part of it as well, right? You're 3 hours into a concert. 3 Days Grace is just finished. Well, that would have been around the 2-hour, 45-minute mark, I think. And then, there's another band coming out, and if you're a 3 Days Grace fan, you're like, I'm good. And that's where I was. Like, if my wife had said to me, we're tired, we'd love to stay for Volbeat, but we want to go home, I would have been like, cool, I'll go to the van now. But yeah, so I'll go through the 3 Days Grace set list, because this was really what I was there for, right? So they start with Animal I've Become. I love that song, absolutely love that. I've always loved that song. They go to Soul Called Life, which is a good song, and Break. Break is one of my absolute favorites. I remember when Break came out, and I loved that song. I remember my daughter at the time saying, do you know what that song's about? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, but you don't do that. And I'm like, it's a fun song. I don't care. Home is a great song. Home is a song that I've felt at times in my life. That song, when you're in a situation where you kind of dread going home, yeah, that song absolutely speaks to you, regardless of the situation and the circumstance. That song has something there that you can feel there. The Mountain's a great song. It's an anthem. And what's funny is, I'm putting together this list of my all-time favorite songs. I'm up to 560 now or something. But anthems aren't in it. So like Rock and Roll All Night, I've always detested that song. A lot of songs that are anthems. So like Raise a Little Hell. I don't like that song either. The anthem, the sing-alongs, the clap-alongs, I'm not a fan. But The Mountain is kind of an anthem song, and yet I like it. One song that is definitely an anthem, but I still like it, is Thunderstruck by AC/DC. It's a weakness I have. Chalk Outline, which was fine. Time of Dying, Apologies. These 3 songs here I'm not as familiar with. So, I mean, yeah, I cheered and clapped when necessary and all that. And it was the first time they've played Apologies live, so the crowd was kind of quiet for that one because it's a brand new song, so understandable. Then they went into I Hate Everything About You, which is their classic. The first time we saw them live, I'm pretty sure that's what they closed out the set with. As I said, I recorded that. I posted it here to the channel, the last minute and a bit of it. I don't like to hold my phone up for an entire song. Rammstein, I will make that exception, but I generally don't hold my phone up for an entire song. But I Hate Everything About You is so iconic. So I was like, I have to record part of this. And the fact that Adam and Matt were both together on stage, just seeing both singers is so mind-blowing. Because when Adam left the band, I never thought I'd see the day he came back. I never thought I'd see the day that he went back to the band. I know the Eagles reunited after years of feuding and that there's lots of storylines where a singer leaves a band and comes back, but I still didn't think Adam would ever go back to 3 Days Grace. I Am Machine, fun song, and Mayday. Mayday is quickly becoming an all-timer for me. That is quickly becoming, like, it's been stuck in my head all day since I woke up this morning. It's been stuck in my head. It is such a fantastic song with a great video. The video for Mayday is absolutely fantastic, and it works with the song, and it's the perfect way, too, to introduce that there are 2 lead singers for the band now. And their voices work together. It's so much fun. Pain is a great song as well. The Good Life, fun, boppy little song. Painkiller, it's a fun one too. And then Never Too Late. So Never Too Late's where you bring your phone out and everybody's singing along. And that's the thing too, everybody's singing along, everybody's dancing. In between every song, fans are chanting 3 Days Grace, 3 Days Grace, which, yes, the band encouraged. The band started it, well, Matt started it, and the fans in between every song, 3 Days Grace, 3 Days Grace. And it was just, it was a good back and forth between the crowd and the band. And then they end with Riot. So, I didn't record Riot for a simple reason. It's Vancouver. And I thought, you know what? If I record this and I say this is the final song, the comments under that short are going to be, well, of course they finished with Riot. It's Vancouver. It's been their closer for concerts for a while. I'm pretty sure it was the closer the last time I saw them live, which again was in Vancouver. We've seen them, have we seen them once in Abbotsford? I think once we saw them in Abbotsford and twice in Vancouver now. 3 times altogether. But Riot's a great song. Absolutely fantastic. And I was dancing along, jumping around the whole time. One thing about being on the floor, room. By this point, I had room. The staff, a couple of times they came over and moved people out of my way. There was one point where I felt like I might have alerted somebody to the fact that I was having trouble seeing, and I wasn't being a jerk. I wasn't yelling at anybody. I wasn't tapping anybody. Can you get out of my way? I instead of being in front of my chair, I stepped behind it. I was like, I'm going to step behind it because that's going to look odd. It's going to look different, and somebody might look over. And I think that might be part of what happened there. But it was it's obnoxious. Don't stand in front. Don't stand there taking selfies. Like, I don't understand. You're at a concert, you're watching 3 Days Grace, and you're like, hey. No, not during the concert. My wife's taken pictures of us at concerts before. It's always before the concert that she'll take the picture. Just like when we go to a hockey game. It's before the hockey game that she'll take the picture. Not during. I just think that's poor selfie handling. And then that's that whole main character syndrome, right? Like, you don't care that you're blocking people out. You don't care about anybody else's enjoyment of the show. And you're in that moment just paying attention to you and your friend. It's not about the people around you at all. And just imagine if everybody was doing it. You'd have, in this case, it would have about 9,000. They had the top section all blocked off, all curtained off, which looks weird. I know you don't like to see empty seats. I know that seeing empty seats is not great. I remember seeing Rammstein in 2012 in Vancouver and looking around, and everybody was in the lower bowl. So the upper bowl was empty, and there were still some empty seats in the lower bowl. And I looked around, and I remember saying to my ex, who I was at the concert with, they're never coming back to Vancouver. There's no way, with the numbers they're getting here in Vancouver, they could go to Berlin and make 5 times this amount of money and not leave home. So why would they come to Vancouver if the building's not even going to be half full? And it's been 13 years. They've never come back to Vancouver since. So I had a feeling, and sadly it turned out that I was right. But it was a great experience. And then when Volbeat came out, I noticed there were a lot of empty seats. But I thought, well, people are still out at the merch tables and whatnot. So That's probably all it is. Nope, they didn't come back. A lot of people, and then when the concert was still going, I left. There were like I don't know how many songs were left, but I was like, I'm done. Volbeat was louder than 3 Days Grace too, so I was starting to get a headache. I knew my ears were ringing already, so I was kind of already just tired. I was like, this is a lot. It's a long time. 4 hours is a long time. Although I did have the thought as well of, it cost me less for a ticket to see this 4 hour concert than it would have for a Canucks game, which lasts about 2.5 hours, and I didn't have disappointment in the performance. I loved the performance. And I didn't go out going, well, that was stupid. I don't know what I bothered with that for. It's a long time. It's a long time. It's the same thing I said after the last Slipknot concert. Coming out of that, and I've seen Slipknot twice. That second Slipknot concert, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go again, because it's just they're long. Slipknot, I think, usually is 4 bands as well, so it goes on for quite some time. I think the last Slipknot concert, I think it was around 5 hours actually. Man, by the end of the Slipknot concert, I was sitting down. I was like, I'm done. My legs can't do all this, stand and jumping around. I'm not a young pup anymore, but 3 Days Grace, absolutely worth it. I would recommend them to anybody. I think whoever decided Volbeat should go on after 3 Days Grace might be rethinking that. I kind of felt bad for Volbeat too, because they would see all those empty seats. They would see people walking out. And that has to be jarring for a performer as popular as Volbeat. They are a pretty popular band. But 3 Days Grace is the one. There wasn't an empty seat during 3 Days Grace that I saw. It was packed for 3 Days Grace, and they are clearly a beloved band in Vancouver. And when Matt said, we've been to Vancouver tons of times and we're going to be here lots more, the crowd ate that up, and I did too. I think 3 Days Grace is moving up the list. So one video I've thought about doing is talking about who my favorite bands are and trying to rank that, because I rank everything. It's weird, but it's led me to being a YouTuber, so ranking things has worked for me. But they are moving up the list in terms of my all-time favorite bands, and they're fantastic live. They are just absolutely ridiculously good live, and they're not too loud. All the levels are right. There are some bands that just figure, well, we'll just turn it up to 11, and then we'll make sure the bass is as loud as possible. We've really got to get those drums as loud as possible. It's like, yeah, but you don't. You guys, like, the experience live should feel not studio-like, obviously, because you're live, but you should still be able to hear the singer and what they're singing. And there are times we've gone to concerts and we can't hear the singer. Like, I can't hear the singer, or I can't tell what song that is, because the levels are all so weird and off. One example I would use would be Bullet for My Valentine. I saw them in 2014, and I don't know if I'd see them live again, because I had a really hard time following what was going on. And I knew it had to be their setup, because Lamb of God came out after, and theirs were fine. I wasn't a Lamb of God fan, but I could understand what was going on and everything, and I thought Lamb of God, all their music was clear. And then Slipknot came out after them, and Slipknot was fine as well. That's right, because I got there late. Motionless in White was the first band in that concert. And Motionless in White sounded fine too. It was just Bullet for My Valentine that sounded off. The entire performance sounded off, where I didn't know what song they were singing, which is too bad, because I like Bullet for My Valentine. The rest of the concert was fine. Slipknot was great that night too. So yeah, if I was putting together a dream concert, it'd probably be like 3 Days Grace. If it's gonna be, the metal dudes, it'd be 3 Days Grace, Slipknot, Rammstein. Yeah, probably in that order, and that'd be an amazing night. So that's the concert I saw last night. I did. I don't know. It ended up, we weren't home until almost 1 a.m, and we left here to go to the concert at about 10 after 4 in the afternoon. So that's a long day. And I do wonder how long these other concerts I'm going to are going to be. So we're going to see Baby Metal next month. That's, I think, July 14th. That'll just be myself, my wife, and our daughter. And then we're going to go see Korn, which involves everybody in this house except one kid didn't want to go see Korn. I still don't understand why, because Korn's going to be fantastic. I've not seen Korn. My wife's not seen Korn live. We're really excited. And then Linkin Park in September. Everybody in the family is going to Linkin Park because we all love Linkin Park. Yes, even the new stuff. We even like the new stuff. I do understand that the new Linkin Park stuff may not be for fans of Linkin Park from, Chester and especially the early stuff. But I think they sound really good. I've seen some concert footage from them with the new singer. I think they sound really good. So I'm excited about that, and I can definitely do reviews when we go to those concerts. And yes, I can talk about the R-Truth thing from last night in WWE and let you guys know whether or not I think it's a work. But that'll be a different video. But yeah, this was a fun night. I just think the wrong band went on last. I think it should have been 3 Days Grace. I think it should have been 3 Days Grace. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.